rules and do everything, but nothing is changing for us.
Hi Raj, Paul Perkins here. Hope last night went well. I've not heard from you about today, so see you at 4.
Message for Paul Perkins from Raj Chalcot. We met yesterday. Sorry, but I'm still in a meeting. I don't think I'm going to be able to make 4 o'clock at the Chalcot. I'm sorry about that. If you give me a call, we'll see if we can rearrange it.
Message left at 3:28 this afternoon.
There's simply no communication. So as long as there's nothing wrong, which the government is doing wrong, which affects you, and you hence don't need to be in touch with them, there's not a problem. But as soon as there is something wrong, which you do need to communicate, it's just impossible. It just doesn't happen. And people may say, well, you need to go through the formal avenues and so on. But let's be honest, we've been through the formal avenues. We've tried to go through Glenda Jackson, we've tried to go through housing, we've tried to go to ODPM, we've tried to go to Treasury, and we get absolutely nowhere.
Hello, you've reached Raj's voicemail. I'm not available to take your call right now, but if you leave a message after the tone, I'll get right back to you.
After the tone, please record your message. When you have finished, you may hang up.
Hi Raj, it's Paul Perkins again. I've left messages before about getting back in contact for doing an interview. You are the counsellor who is responsible for housing. If you could ring me as soon as possible, that would be great. You know, we agreed when you cancelled on us with half an hour to go after having 2 weeks' notice for an interview that that you'd be back in contact, but that hasn't happened. The number of people who can't say anything. You know, X from PFI says, well, this is what I think, but I can't say anything. X from Camden Housing, I think this, but I can't say anything. X from XPFI, I think this, but I can't say anything. And then even the independent ones, you know, if that is indeed what Camden Federation is. I'm sorry, I have to make sure that everything I say is in line with what the committee thinks. Remarkable. You really think you're going to get through? Hey Raj, it's Paul Perkins.
Hello, Paul.
Hey, how's it going?
It's alright. I'm sorry I'm blowing you out.
Yeah, that's right, man. I was just a bit frustrated because everyone from Camden has blamed me out today. I was wondering if it wasn't more than just the meeting.
It may be easier for me after the election, to be truthful, but I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Is that just because there's election law or?
If for officers, it's election law.
For you, I mean.
For me, it's just a question of putting it into the timetable because we're so busy with the election, going to meetings every night.
Yeah, I'm fine.
To have a little chat before.
Okay.
Because we've just spoken to Neil Litherland, and he's adamant that Judy and I cannot do this because we're so closely involved in the project.
Right.
Because the project basically hasn't come to an end in its sense.
Yeah.
So we can't, but totally from a different perspective because he works directly with residents and really is not part of the PFI team. It's the only one that can have the interview.
Neil.
Not Neil.
Tolu can
right.
have it.
Photography.
See, we need to get into with Neil as well. We've been doing
We just need an interview with people because Tolu's great, but we've got lots of ground level people.
Yeah,
That's not the
it's
problem.
Because it's really politically sensitive. It's the real issue.
I'm going to call Neil Litherland now because so far that's where all of the roads lead, and that's where all the questions are. For instance, couldn't get an interview with Camden PFI department, not because they said no, but because when we turned up they basically told us that Neil said no. So I'd like to give Neil the opportunity to represent himself. I feel that's honourable. Is that cool? We just want an interview, really.
It's embarrassing because I was pioneering the thing in this block, and every time we had a meeting, I used to go and say, they'd say, what's happening to PFI? Oh, this is going on, that's happening, and this is happening. So yeah, you do in many ways, you know. And in the end, I resigned out of it because I did. Yeah, I resigned from it in the end because you know, because people were. I was misleading people. I felt I was misleading people, really, but I wasn't, you know.
You're looking at a situation where a government has to, in some ways, manage to overcome the huge burden of £19 billion being what we were faced with when we came into government, simply on the level of repair and refurb of local authority housing stock. And no one is going to pretend that every local authority was as good as managing their stock as Camden has been. So government, that has to look at things nationally, came up with these 3 proposals. Everybody knew what was inherent in those proposals. Everybody knew what wouldn't happen if the vote went the wrong way. But that doesn't apply to Chalcots because people did vote for the PFI.
I mean, I think PFIs are really difficult. I think lots of PFIs are going to end up costing a fortune, a far more expensive way of doing it, just for the sake of the Treasury keeping technically within its rules. Right. Which isn't very sensible, because in terms of real cash, it's real cash wasted. I think, you know, Camden should, if it needs to borrow money for housing repairs, should do it itself, raise the money itself, or if it manages to sell off a bit of land itself, or, you know, manage its own finances. It shouldn't expect to have permission from the Treasury to do it.
What's the problem with simply giving a reliable council like Camden the money to invest in Chalcots as opposed to making residents decide between those?
Because it would be marked up against a variety of economic factors that impact upon the country as a whole. I've had these arguments before on the issue of what government presented as part of their strategy to produce the Decent Homes initiative, and certainly people were very voluble in arguing against arm's length management. That doesn't apply to Chalcots because they'd already opted for PFI. But you can't turn round to government and say you have to come up with a 4th or a 5th option, because the 3 options are already in place. Sure. Other local authorities, other local authority tenants have chosen to go, for example, down the arm's length management organisation road, or for the management of their estates to be handed over to another social landlord, or for the PFI. Those were the realities. That's what the vote was about.
I think the whole thing has been